we'll learn about do's and don'ts of inequalities. So first don'ts of inequality is that do not cancel minus sign on both the sides without changing the sign of inequality. Cancelling the sign is nothing but multiplying minus 1 on both the sides. Now if we multiply minus 1 on both the sides, we know that we have to change the sign of inequalities, as we have seen in the properties of inequality. Let's check with the help of an example. Now let's see what happens in equality. This is an equality. How do we solve this question? Minus 4x equals to minus 16. Then we cancel the negatives on both the side and 4 on both the side, and x equals to 4. This is how we used to do in equality when there is a sign of equality. Now what happens if we have to deal with inequality, that minus 4x is greater than minus 16? Can we cancel the negatives on both the sides? Let's see if we do that and what happens. If we do that, so minus sign minus x is greater than 4. See, we are getting x is greater than 4. Now let's suppose we take x greater than 4. Let's suppose we take x equals to 5. Then, and let's plug in over here. Then we get minus 20 greater than minus 16. Is it correct? No. Because we know that minus 20 is less than minus 16. So we learn that we will not cancel the negative sign without changing the sign of inequality. How we'll solve this question? This is minus 4x greater than minus 16. Now we have to multiply it with minus 1 on both the sides. What will happen if we multiply with minus 1 on both the sides? This would become 4x. Now we know that, or we have seen the property that if we multiply minus 1 on both the sides, the sign of inequality changes. So this becomes 16. If we multiply minus 1 to minus 16, then x is less than 4. Now let's check that. X equals to 3. Plug in this original equation. It is minus 12 greater than minus 16. Yes, this is true. So always remember that we do not cancel the minus sign in case of inequality unless and until we change the sign of inequality. Now another don'ts of inequality is that do not inverse both the sides without changing the side of inequality. Again, it goes with the same basic principle or the basic property of inequality, that if we inverse the inequality, the sign of inequality changes. So do not inverse without changing the sign of inequality. It is just the reverse of what is the basic property. Let's check by solving this equation. This is an equality. This is equality, not inequality. So 1 by x equals to 1 by 4. 1 by x equals to 1 by 4. What is the value of x? We get the value of x equals to 4. Now what happens if there is a sign of inequality? Let's see that 1 by x is greater than 1 by 4. Now there is an inequality involved. So 1 by x is greater than 1 by 4. So let's inverse this or inverse both the sides. If we inverse both the sides, it would be x. Now on inversing, the sign of inequality changes. So this is greater than, so this would be less than, and again we have to inverse 1 by 4, and this is x is less than 4. If we don't do this, if we do not change the sign of inequality, it would be x greater than 4, and this is wrong. If you plug it into this equation, that let's suppose x equals to 5, it would be 1 by 5 greater than 1 by 4, and this is wrong. So always remember that whenever we have to change the sign of, or whenever we inverse the LHS and the RHS, the sign of inequality will change. Okay. So let's summarize what we have studied till now. That we have to follow two don'ts, that we do not have to cancel minus sign unless and until we change the sign of inequality, and also whenever we inverse both the side, we have to change the sign of inequality. So both these properties, if we are cancelling minus sign, we have to change the sign of inequality. If we are inversing both the side, we have to change the sign of inequalities. So do remember this important don'ts and follow these do's.